Craig is getting set. Craig is bringing his equipment up here.
The list of all the passwords.
But I'm sure now, I mean, your internet is goes down, you're out of your home.
If the internet goes down,
Make sure it doesn't jump up on me.
you will not be able to access your stuff. You can access your stuff by, and there's a free version and then there's the pro version. By the way, you can access by going to the website.
You can't access this over the website.
Right, and then you can also, you know.
I am ready. All right. It gives me great pleasure to introduce lovable Craig Maloney. He's going to talk about Milestones. Yes, Linux, Unix, and computing, and other neat things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some anniversaries that are coming up, both in the previous year, 2014, and in the current year, 2015. So Sherman set the Wayback Machine for, well, first off, before I get too far, a lot of this stuff comes from the site computerhope.com/history. Most of it, in fact, is cribbed directly from, so credits to that site. So Sherman set the Wayback Machine for 1945. What was happening back then, other than coming out of World War II? The von Neumann architecture and a description of the general-purpose electronic digital computer. Anyone ever hear of the von Neumann architecture? Yeah, it's kind of popular. It kind of caught on to it. Computer bugs. First one. Oh, what the hell is that? Bless America. All right, 1 second.
There we go.
I've got a blue screen.
It never worked. That's not the bug. Yeah.
That's it. There. Where is it? Okay. Okay. We'll just do it this way then. The computer bug was introduced back in 1945 as well, at least the term computer bug. When she was programming the Mark II, taped it onto a nice little logbook and said, "It's your problem now." The first ballpoint pen computing device, early back in the 1940s, went on sale for $12.50. Now I think you can get about what, 1,000 of them for about that much, roughly.
I wonder what that was.
Yeah.
The first computer bug was a bug.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It was a moth.
Right.
Yeah.
Got into memory, right?
No, in between the relay switch.
Yeah. Caused all sorts of havoc.
Moths attracted the heat light of the vacuum tubes.
Yeah, like moth to a flame, like most developers. Anyways, the first electronic computer in 1950 was created in Japan by Hideo Yamashita. I'm not entirely sure what it looked like, but that's that. Another guy by the name of Turing came up with his famous little Turing test. That's how you figure out if that's a robot or not. No, I'm sorry. That is the way to figure out if you're talking to an artificial intelligence or not. The NiCad battery, Scourge of the Universe, begins its first commercial use. Wow. 1955, moving a little forward. MIT introduces the Whirlwind machine on March 8th, which is the first computer with magnetic core RAM and real-time graphics. So core memory, rocking on.
That was cool.
Bell Labs introduces the first transistor computer, which is nice. Kind of get a little attached to those. The ENIAC was turned off. It's estimated to do more arithmetic than the entire human race had done prior to 1945. Imagine what you can do now.
On your phone.
On your phone. 1960s, great year. The first integrated circuit comes to be. So we go from transistor computers to integrated circuit computers very shortly. 2,000 computers are used in the United States. I'm sure in this room there are probably 2,000 computers.
Right.
AT&T introduces the data phone and the first known modem, modulator, demodulator. RS-232, also another scourge of the universe, is introduced by the EIA. Anybody got RS-232 cables hanging about?
Oh, heck yeah.
Anybody
want one? I'll bring it for you. Yeah, connected to my modem, right?
The first PDP mini computer is introduced in 1960 as well.
Wow.
Harbinger of things to come. 1965, Commodore Business Machines is founded back in 1965 by Jack Tramiel et al. Digital Equipment introduces the PDP-8, which is also another harbinger of doom. Let's see here. Simula language is introduced. Anybody ever programmed in Simula?
Never heard of it.
Okay, good to know. Texas Instruments develops the transistor logic, TTL. It's really important later on.
That was time to live.
It could be, but here it's transistor logic.
Depends on context, right?
Anybody ever heard of Moore's Law?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was introduced back in 1965 as well.
Yeah, the power will double every 2.5 years.
Pretty much, yeah. 1969, I'm going off a little bit, script here. I'm not doing it by 5, but in 1969 there's a couple of important events. One of which will figure into what we're doing here today. The UCLA puts out the first press release introducing the public to the internet.
Wow.
So the internet is, what, 45 years old now? Is that what it is? Yeah, 45 years old, I think. On September 2nd, the first data moves from UCLA to the INP switch. The poor student, UCLA student, sends that login message over the ARPANET. It gets to L and O and then crashes. So not only was it the first message, but the first internet crash. Both of many, a harbinger of many things to come. Also in 1969, Steve Crocker introduces RFC1, talking about the host-to-host and talking about the IMP software. Apparently it was a big thing at the time. Ralph Baer, who just passed away, unfortunately, files for U.S. patent on August 21st, 1969, that describes playing games, which will later be the Magnavox Odyssey, and would also be the progenitor of many good and or bad Pong systems for generations to come. CompuServe, might have heard of them. They were established back in 1969. Oh, I didn't do the birthdays on purpose because, oh my God, I think everyone was born in either 1965 or 69. Let's see what else we got here. Control Data, led by Seymour Cray, releases the CDC 7600, which is the first supercomputer considered by many. Intel releases its first product, the 3101 Schottky TTL bipolar 64-bit static RAM access memory, SRAM. In the same year, it also, yeah, whatever, you can read the slide. Gary Starkweather, while working with Xerox, invents the laser printer. Also another harbinger of doom. I'm sure he also introduced the first paper jam then. David S. Lee invents the Daisy Wheel printer, also invents the paper jam there.
I was going to say, they can't be printers, it's just different types.
And AT&T Bell Labs introduces our namesake, the UNIX operating system. I wonder if that'll ever catch on. And I wonder if, yeah, great. I did my own joke there. Thanks a lot. And then there's this guy. This guy was introduced in December 28th, 1969.
Cool.
1970. And, well, yeah, there was that. You know.
There was Woodstock too.
That little
but,
thing. 1970, the System 370, which included the use of virtual memory and utilized memory chips instead of magnetic core technology, both of which are things we're still trying to figure out today. Centronics introduces the first dot matrix printer, also the ability to do tractor feed so that it goes like this. Douglas Engelbart gets a patent for the first computer mouse in 1970. Intel introduces and releases the 1103, which is DRAM chip. It's first classified as random access memory. The fourth programming language. Anyone programming fourth?
Heard of that one?
Yeah, all right, at least someone's heard of it.
Where's Will?
First, second, third.
He knows all these things.
The U.S. Department of Defense developed Ada, a computer programming language for capable of designing missile guidance systems. And Philips introduces the VCR. I wonder if that ever took off either. Western Digital is founded back in 1970. And they keep on spinning along. Gonna go 4 years later. Intel's improved microprocessor chip is introduced. The 8080 becomes the standard in the computer industry. I'm gonna do a little 8080 demo in a second.
40.
Altair 8800 starts going on sale. Back when personal computer revolution, as it were. The U.S. government starts its antitrust suit against AT&T. It doesn't end until 1982, when AT&T agrees to divest itself of UNIX and all the other wonderful things. And we're still feeling the repercussions today. John Draper, aka Captain Crunch, figures out that a Captain Crunch whistle at the exact 2600 hertz will allow him to do all sorts of wonderful things to the phone system. The first Toshiba floppy disk is introduced back in 1974.
40 years ago, before its time.
MVS operating system is introduced. Anyone play with MVS?
Yep.
You have my sympathies.
Yeah.
A commercial version of ARPANET known as Telenet is introduced. Anybody use Telenet at all?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Nice. IBM developed SQL, which becomes SQL, which becomes the bane of any database person out there. All right, 1975. Altair Computer is featured on the front of Popular Electronics. Just as an aside, I'm going to bring up something here. I'm going to go a little off script, so.
That can be dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's a live demo.
Actually, Popular Electronics had a project for making a computer based on the 8008.
Right.
Before the Altair was even around.
So this is what an Altair 8080 kind of looked like.
Mm.
And
Oh, yeah.
power that little bugger up.
Hmm.
And run. Cold boot. Good old CPM.
Wow, that's advanced.
But there's something even better. I'm going to turn this off for the time being here. And I'll show you something else.
That's pretty cool.
One of the, let's see, the Homebrew Computer Club, 1975. A lot of really great things to come out of that. Number one is the Apple I. Number two would be the Apple II.
That's the Apple III though.
And number three would also be a couple other things that I'll get to a little bit later on. IMS Associates begins shipping the MSI 8080. And there's a really, really, really cool demo that I will show you of the MSI 8080. I'm going to do this in an extra. Let's see, can I get this bigger? This is what I get for running out the script. Anywho, small screen there. And this is a demonstration of the MSI 8080, which, if I can do this right, will rotate around.
Wow.
So you can see the back of it.
Oh, look at them RS-232.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's all terminals all the way down. Fire this little bugger up, shows you all the lights. Around there. I've got it set up with a WordPerfect, or not WordPerfect, WordStar disk.
Oh,
God.
wow.
So hopefully this will run.
That was the word processor.
The original.
In the wrong button.
Reboot. .0001.
How many bytes
Insane.
or
Let me
bits?
try powering it up again. Try to power it up. Yeah, I'm at that.
His job was reading paper tape.
I remember it used to be stop, examine, run.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
You just gotta give the little thing time.
Yeah.
Everything.com.
Let's see.
Didn't have room for anything else.
Star Trek?
Yeah, there's a Star Trek on here, but I think basic.
Oh, that was fun. Did you have football in there too?
The long-range sensors.
So, first thing I have to do.
Like Barack Obama, you can program.
Exactly. There you go.
No, make 30, go to 10.
Yeah. And then, this is a little blast from the past. Let's see, WS. And of course, it's got the little lights going on there too. You can see the.
Oh, yeah.
It's clicking along.
Oh, look at that, we're looking.
This one version wouldn't show up until about 1982, I think.
Really?
Yeah, memory lane, late times, huh?
Wow. Maybe we've given
And of course, now I have to
people a
tell you,
program like
please
that
do
to
not
learn
copy this,
how to use
blah,
it.
blah, blah, crap.
Mhm.
I downloaded it off the internet and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Where'd you get these, old machines?
It's called Z80 Sim. So I'll post some notes later on about what it's like. So if you want to play around with an old Z80 machine, that's the way to do it.
Don't even.
And the IBM 5100 becomes the first portable computer, portable in the portable sense. It's a 55-pound computer. It makes the Osborne seem svelte.
Oh, yeah.
What makes it
I was
portable?
gonna say, portable.
Yeah, an itty bitty little screen. I've actually seen photos of this thing. It's the most, it would be adorable to find one, but I wouldn't want to store it.
Portable means you can wheel it around.
Other good things happening in 1975, good. Bill Gates and Paul Allen established Microsoft in 1975. They get Altair Basic out there, put it out on their little paper tapes. And I did a quick demo, so. Move on to 1976. Bill Gates sends his open letter to hobbyists.
Never need more.
This will be about 44 years ago.
Yeah. Shape of
And it looks a little like this. Basically, stop distributing our software because we worked so hard on that and you guys are depriving us of all of this wonderful money. This is what we were fighting against back then.
He bought it.
Anywho,
Poor
moving on.
guy.
1980. I wonder whatever happened to him.
Yeah, you probably didn't make anything.
IBM hires Paul Allen and Bill Gates to do their second act, which is MS-DOS.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, PC DOS for IBM.
Well, PC-DOS for IBM, but yes, MS-DOS. Microsoft licenses Unix and starts to develop a PC version called Xenix. Anybody use Xenix?
I had.
That's the
Again,
old
have my
version of it,
condolences.
yeah.
IBM introduces RISC. And the first handy color computer is introduced.
What do you miss out on?
Well, yeah, because they all happened in like 1976 onward, unfortunately. Because that's when I started getting into computers, around that era.
Same here.
The programming language Fortran 77 was created in 1980, showing as always that Fortran is about 4 years too late.
But Fortran's a lot older than that.
No, I know.
First
That was
one
in the
I learned
60s.
was Watt 5.
IBM hires Microsoft to develop versions of BASIC, Fortran, COBOL, and Pascal for the PC being developed by IBM,
Oh.
which was released around 1981, if I recall correctly.
Microsoft?
81 or 82. Steve Ballmer joins Microsoft, becomes the 30th employee over there, and is the first business manager hired by Bill Gates, and has been stomping up and down in all of our hearts since. Atari also becomes the first company to register a copyright for 2 computer games, Asteroids and Lunar Lander, in 1980.
I like Star Raiders.
Star Raiders was cool. All right, moving on to 1985. First internet domain name, symbolics.com, was registered by Symbolics. Earlier, Nordu.net was created, not registered, in 1985. Blah, 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 Symbolics, yay. The GNU Manifesto was published by Dr. Dodd's journal. It's a document to live by, you should read it sometime. Microsoft and IBM begin collaborating on the next generation operating system, OS/2.
Oh.
Oh, thank God for that, huh?
Glad that never-
1985, the Mock project begins in Carnegie Mellon. I think they may finish at some point. No, they're good people. Steve Jobs quits Apple in 1985 as well. Who's on it forums up next up? Yep. And Atari introduces the 130XE, 130ST, 260SE, which never made it to market, 520ST, 65XE, 65XEM, which also didn't make it to market, and the 65XEP, which also did not make it to market.
I thought I heard the 520 ST.
And the Amiga, aka the A1000, is introduced as well. Awesome little machine. Dell releases its first computer, the Turbo PC. Because it had turbo mode on it, yeah. Basically, you just up the clock to 8 megahertz and watch everything crash. Intel introduces the 803086 in October.
That was the first decent.
Microsoft Windows 1.0 is introduced in November 1985 and sells for $100.
And it ran in DOS and didn't do much.
Yeah, well. And they introduced the first version of QuickBasic. Anyone play with QuickBasic? Gorillas.bash. The Nintendo Entertainment System is released in 1985. So, good times ahead. And the Well. Anybody remember the Well?
No.
It was if I remember correctly, it was a BBS, but it was also internet connected, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, it wasn't.
Not really, not internet connected, but it became internet connected later on.
I knew it as a GBS.
Yeah.
Only BBS I played on was Galacticon, so.
Yeah, Galacticon, yeah.
All right, 1990, Tim Berners-Lee, working with Robert Caillou, I think that's how you pronounce it. Proposed hypertext, which later becomes HTML. Microsoft exceeds $1 billion in sales and becomes the first company to do so. And speaking of Microsoft, well, first off, Goodwin's Law is conceived. Yay. Happy anniversary, Goodwin's Law.
What was that like?
I think it's that everything becomes related to Hitler at some point. ARPANET is decommissioned in 1990, replaced by the internet. The Hubble telescope goes up into space. Well,
This would be 6.
The World, the first commercial internet dial-up access provider, comes online as well. MPC, anybody remember MPC standards? Basically a whole bunch of loosely knit standards in order to try and get your CD around and make noise and do poorly at all of that. Microsoft and IBM stopped working on OS/2. Yay. 5 years of blissful harmony, only to be torn
The
asunder.
IBM version worked.
ARPANET is replaced by NSFNet. And nickel metal hydride begins being used for commercial use as well. Wow, I wonder if that'll ever take on either. Gopher is developed at the University of Minnesota.
That was the thing?
That was a thing?
That
I
was
remember
the first
setting up a
browser.
Gopher server back when.
And you had Veronica to search it?
Link to
Yeah,
later.
and Archie to search the FTP
Right.
sites. Adobe Photoshop is released.
Wow.
And pictures were never the same since.
You never trust them now.
Creative Labs introduces the Sound Blaster Pro, became the de facto standard. I think it probably still is the de facto standard in sound cards, sadly enough. Quarter deck. The only way to really get at all of your memory was QEMM 386.
Yeah.
And I remember running all sorts of different profiling programs to try and eke out that little extra 2K so that X-Men would run. Microsoft releases Windows 3.0, completely new version of Microsoft Windows. They'll go on to sell 3 million copies of that.
3.1.
Archie, we're talking about that. Search engine was released. The Internet Movie Database is launched, which is kind of nutty to think of pre-web IMDb.
Yeah.
And Intel releases the low-power version of the 386, which, yeah, okay. 1995, dot-com bomb starts.
Bomb.
I guess that's why they say it's the dot-com bomb. Netscape introduces SSL. I guess that's why they had the dot-com boom, because then people could securely do transactions. Yeah. Sun Microsystems announces JavaScript, my personal bane, and releases it in Netscape 2.0 Beta 3, the same year that they also introduced Java in the browser. So, yes.
I thought it was Netscape who introduced the JavaScript, not.
So did I.
No, Netscape introduced JavaScript, but, oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Yeah, someone screwed this up. No, it's Netscape that did.
JavaScript.
Netscape did JavaScript.
Sun did Java, yeah.
And they both converged into Netscape 2.0. PHP was publicly introduced in 1995, aka the cross-site scripting language. USB standard is released.
Back in. Wow.
And you can tell that Steve Jobs is not in the building because Apple allows other computer companies to clone its operating system, which gave rise to the Radius computers, which were some of the best clones out there. And then when Steve Jobs comes back to Apple, so Radius goes bye-bye. Kevin Mitnick is arrested by the FBI.
In 95 or 99?
Why is that 99? Oh, goodness. Yeah, whatever.
That's the first rush.
99 is when he's arrested.
Word start, we'll fix it.
The first voice over IP software, Vocaltech, is released, allowing end users to make voice calls over the internet.
Wow.
That really hits.
And the first E3 is held in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Amazon.com, whom I ordered from today, and probably at least once a week, opened its doors in 1995. Thank you, Amazon Prime. On September 20th, 1995, AT&T splits into 3 separate publicly traded companies: Systems and Equipment Company, a computer company, and a communications services company. And they all eventually come back together, Terminator style. HTML 2.0 standard is first published in 1995. I think that introduced tables in the background tag, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. Anyways, Deep Blue plays, or is unveiled, which will later on play and I believe beat Gary Kasparov, at least once, not entirely. I know, there's all chess. Alta Vista launches in 1995. Last search engine you'll ever need.
It had its time.
It had its time. It was good.
Oh,
It was
wow.
good. Larry Page and Sergey Brin began developing a search engine called Backrub with PageRank, which becomes part of Google.
Well, never knew that's what it was called.
Codenamed Utopia, Microsoft Bob is introduced into the public. Utopia it was not.
Was that stupid picture?
Precursor to
It was a desktop metaphor gone horribly wrong.
You don't have that emulator?
No, I don't. I think all copies of those bits were burned. The Verse Wiki was created. Perl 5.001 was introduced and is probably still in production somewhere.
Probably.
The Opera browser was introduced in 1995 as well. Microsoft releases Internet Explorer 1.0. And releases 4.0. It was a dark time that year.
Actually, IE versus Netscape.
And just don't
You know.
the LA Omega Dryless drive was introduced. I had one of these suckers. It was a brilliant drive. Brilliant.
Just slow.
It was slow. It was 1 gigabyte of very slow storage.
That was a decent.
Yeah. Because the zip was 100 megabytes.
Yeah, NT, that was the first year of NT.
Microsoft NT 3.5. And again, dark times.
No, that was halfway decent.
Microsoft releases Windows 95. Dark times.
That was a terrible operating system.
Intel releases a new motherboard form factor, ATX, which I think we're still using today. And Internet Explorer 2.0, again, dark
On my
times.
birthday.
Starts the browser wars between them and Netscape and Opera. Yeah.
Well,
Anyways.
no, it was them and Netscape.
Ruby was released in 1995.
Notice it took 20 years for that one.
Pentium Pro also makes its debut. Decent. Which I think has also had like introduced the div bug or something like that, if I'm remembering properly.
I don't know what this was before Yahoo.
It introduced some incompatibles and all that. Yahoo.com shows up in 1991.
Alta Vista was before Yahoo. Wow.
Well, it's around
The same year.
Yeah, same year.
All of us have been 95.
Yeah.
we're only,
eBay.com comes in 1995.
That's a
I think
big
there's
year.
something to that whole .com boom thing.
Maybe.
Toy Story was released in 1995 because
It's
it's the
just
first
a fad.
completely computer-generated movie. Now we're in the 2000s. World ends because of Y2K. Because that was, after a while, I'm like, seriously, there's just way too much stuff that was going on, and I think we're done. Anywho,
Gene.
thank you.
Cool. Great, thank you.
That was cool.
It had so much humor to it.
And there's,
So, what do we have to give away?
My first computer, I had a little boot tape.
We haven't given away.
May I have your attention? The time is now 8:30.
I worked
The
on
library will be
tapes.
closing in 30 minutes at 9
My
p.m.
first job, I read
Please be advised that the internet connections will shut down approximately 10 minutes before closing.
The internet is shutting down.
Are we doing, we're gonna use these tickets for giveaways?